should we attempt to do maybe a top 5, top 10 Spielberg?
We could do that real quick.
Yeah, I'm down. It's gonna be tough because I love
That's why.
Spielberg so much.
And no particular order. I mean, I've mentioned on the podcast that I feel like ultimately Jaws is his best movie, even if it's not like his greatest, but just from a purely cinematic experience. So for me, I think it's Jaws. I think Minority Report and Jurassic Park are very close seconds. Wow, this is tough. I mean, I really feel like E.T. is quite the consequential movie, even though it's a kids movie. It's one of the greatest kids movies ever made. So it must be, and I've watched it recently, and I cried like a baby. I was like, it was so emotional. Because I remember not crying when I saw it as a young adult, so I was like, oh, let me see it. Yeah, and then after E.T., it's tough because I like Indiana Jones, the Indiana Jones movies, but I also feel like this is a very strange choice, but I feel like Close Encounters is an underrated Spielberg movie. So if I had to pick another one, I think I remember rewatching that one again as a young adult, and I was just flabbergasted by the setup there and the confluence of everything coming together. And we've talked before about Spielberg not being a super personal director, being more of a technician, but that is the script that he wrote, and maybe that's why it suffered from some plotting issues. But it is his most personal movie ultimately, and he somehow made that work with Alien and an Alien Arrival story. So to me, that movie is quite consequential and probably one of the best split diopter use in movie history. Some really good split focus stuff in that movie. So I guess that would be like a top 5. I mean, I would say honorable mentions. Lincoln, I'm a fan of, and yeah, definitely Schindler's List. Even though I have some issues with it, it's definitely a top 10. I'm very partial to Hook. I don't know why, but I'm a big fan of that. And I would probably throw the first Indiana Jones, the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, definitely in the top 10. That kind of wraps it up. And probably if I was really trying to be nice, I would squeeze Saving Private Ryan in there. Probably. Yeah, although I really think there's some movies like The Post and Bridge of Spies that I might have even liked slightly better than Saving Private Ryan, but just purely for the first 30 minutes, I think it deserves to be in the top 10.
Yeah.
So I think I got to 8 or 9, 10, so I'll stop there.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, Jason, if you want to go ahead, but I can.
In no particular order. Jaws, Minority Report, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Last Crusade, E.T., Lincoln, and Ready Player One would be my top 10.
My favorite thing in Ready Player One was that attractive woman running around in a Joy Division shirt.
I somehow thought you were going to mention that.
Yeah.
I should mention too that Duel I really, really like.
I thought about it, but it would be around my 15 or so.
Yeah. But Duel is kind of reminds me of comparing that to Nolan's Following and Aronofsky Pie.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a hint of what's to come, that movie, just in a very small scale.
In a way, I kind of think that I guess not, because it doesn't have very many characters. So Duel is a pretty small movie in a sense, but compared to when you're talking about like directors' first films and how and like stuff like what you just said, Following and Pie and stuff like that. Um, both of those movies are largely like people in rooms, talking
Yeah.
and stuff. I think that definitely Following is by far the best out of those three movies. And just as a piece of cinema, it's the best one, I think. But there's something to be said about how like Duel is like, I mean, it's a big diesel truck and like it's like a whole bunch of locations along the road and everything. It's like a movie, it's like a movie. It doesn't feel like a student film at all.
It's a TV movie. It wasn't a student film.
No, I
But-
know it wasn't, but I'm saying
Yeah.
people's first film, especially when you hear about these directors and it's like, oh, they made this movie for like no budget, kind of thing. It's like, that's like a movie,
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the stuff he was doing there. Like there's definitely some clunky stuff. Like he was doing a lot of like tracking shots in the like some of the locations, handheld, and that was just very awkward. They're very like 70s. They were okay with it before the whole Steadicam thing became more used. But the stuff he does, like if you look at that movie again, the shots he choreographs like in the car, like the pulling in and out in the car sequences and the chases with the truck, he milked the hell out of that. Like whatever camera car they had, oh my goodness, he used the camera car like it was a Steadicam.
Yeah.
Like it was a techno crane in the early 70s. It was like nuts what he did there, like with the mirror, from the mirror to the bumper, from the bumper to the mirror, just crazy. Nobody. You'll give that movie to 99 other directors and they wouldn't even do 10% of what he did there.
We should sometime we should make a list of like the best movies that have like really big car sequences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Duel would belong on that list.
Yeah.
With like, Death Proof and maybe Lock.
Yeah. Different kinds of effect.
Very different. No. I'm just trying to think. Like
definitely. I mean, also
thing.
Obviously the Mad Max, like Fury Road.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Anything where there's either a very large, very important sequence, or where like the bulk of the movie is like cars, driving in cars, kind of thing. It's you run out of shots, so you got to get really creative if you want it to be not tedious.
So what about you, Matt, as far as your 510?
Oh, I mean, obviously 1941. No.
Yeah. It does start with the one.
Yeah. I mean, my personal favorite. I'm not going to argue that it's his best film, but I watch it once a year at least, and I have since 2002. So obviously, Minority Report. I watch that every year, and I enjoy it now today than I did when it was in theaters.
Stay tuned for listeners for a future episode.
Yeah, sure, we'll get to
it. Yeah, well, actually, one movie that neither of you have mentioned that I know is in my top 10, and I know, Gil, you're going to take issue with this, but Munich.
Yeah, I assumed you would bring that one up. I saw it when I was doing my top 10, and I was like, oh, I'm not touching that one.
Yeah. I would definitely put Saving Private Ryan on that list, even despite how incredibly unlikely it would be that Tom Hanks and Tom Sizemore would even be able to survive Ranger training. But Schindler's List and Jurassic Park. Geez, how many is that now? So yeah,
like
Minority. Yeah.
The BFG.
Oh, that was a disappointment. Also, Spielberg's first movie that he shot digitally.
Yeah.
Hopefully his last. Jaws definitely Close Encounters, definitely. E.T., definitely. I think I jumped into this too quickly. I mean, losing count of where I am. So Minority Report.
So you have these on your hands. There are fingers.
Yes.
And, you know, just kidding.
Minority Report, Munich, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List,
Saving Private Ryan.
Jaws, Saving Private Ryan. Yeah.
Encounters with the third.
Close Encounters. Definitely Raiders of the Lost Ark. Uh, you know, I really do have a soft spot for Empire of the Sun.
I was just gonna buy that yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it is the better out of the two serious movies he did there, like with Color Purple and Empire of the Sun.
Yeah, and
Like,
you know the funny, I guess I've got to go with Lincoln in that last spot. But you know, the funny thing is, War Horse is a movie that the first time around when I saw it, it was just kind of meh for me, and then I revisited it like a couple years ago, and I was like, oh shit, this is actually really good. I mean, just noticing certain little tricks that Spielberg put in there that were just so seamless that it actually kind of took me by surprise, and upon revisiting it, I was very glad that I did. So, but yeah, I think that's my 10.
yeah. So I guess Jason, are you did you leave out the Close Encounters in your 10?
Yeah, it would probably be like 11 or 12.
Okay, I'm just curious about the differences between us.
Yeah, I really like Close Encounters. I have it on Laserdisc. I really should watch it again. It's just that's been one I haven't seen probably since the first time I saw it. I think actually.
I think I was the only one that had Hook and top two.
I love Hook. I just bought that one recently too, and I'm kind of upset that I did, but I'm not even going to get into why. I wanted to buy a different version of it, but I really love Hook. Hook is weird though. Hook really affected me in a big way. I really like that movie.
Yeah, it might have been when it came out or something. I was just pretty young, like I was 10 years old, and I think I just watched it again and again on VHS or something, and it just impacted my early teens. I think Andrew also is a fan of Hook. Should we'll see what he thinks once he listens to this.
Dustin Hoffman's monologue in Hook is probably about 15 to 20% of the reason why I don't plan to have any kids.
Yeah. I think Hook also, to me, like the unsung movies of Spielberg, like that get a lot of hate, like that one and The Terminal, I also thought was enjoyable. There's
Never
a few
saw
of these. You didn't see The Terminal? Yeah,
I watched about 15 minutes of it one time, and I was like, oh, I should go back and watch this because like it doesn't seem to be as bad as people said it was, but I never really had an opportunity.
I see.
If there's one thing that should have been learned from that movie and still has not been learned, it's that Tom Hanks should not try to do accents.
Yeah, no, definitely he was that's I guess the main problem with that movie, that he was just not believable as that character because he's such an all-American actor.
Yeah. The actual story that was based off of made a lot more sense. I mean, the guy was I don't even know if he was immigrating to the US or just like, visiting or whatever, but somebody just like stole his passport and like paperwork, and so you just had to hang out in the terminal for a few days while they figured everything out. It wasn't any of this stuff about like this fictional country going into civil war while he was in like mid-flight, and suddenly he doesn't have a nationality or anything. But and you know the thing is like the real story. If you just tell that story, there aren't those logical problems of like, well, why aren't there any other Caucasians in this predicament? I mean, like, why? I mean, I was expecting there to be a line of dialogue at some point in the movie where you know, like, wait a minute. So, like, there are no other people from your country that came here. Like, what happened? You're like, I changed plane many times or something. You know, it's just it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense that there wouldn't be anybody else from his country in that predicament. But
Yeah.
anyway.
It was just enjoyable for what it was, and it was a very, very good premise.
Yeah.
Also, I think The Lost World was a pretty solid sequel. It was obviously not the first Jurassic Park, but I felt like it was pretty enjoyable. There was nothing wrong with it. And interestingly, if I'm not mistaken, I think I read something where the reason why he didn't do the third one is because of AI, that he wanted to do that one. Like it conflicted.
The Lost World suffers from deviating too far from the book.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, I don't know the book. I just thought that it expanded on the idea of what the first one was just added more action and a different approach, like from the approach of the hunter as opposed to the approach of the scientist, like of the paleontologist. Is it a paleontologist? Is the
yes?
Yeah, the dinosaur one. But in any case, but yes, it's got problem. But there's a very good line there, like the one that's that Irish actor says something. What was that line about? Says like somebody tried to climb Everest and like he almost died going up there, and everybody asks him like, well, if it almost killed you, why did you do that? And then he said something about like why did you go up there to die? It's like, I didn't go up there to die. I went up there to live. And I just thought it was like a very good line. I don't know. It's just stuck with me.
If the rest of the movie had been as good as the sequence where the T-Rex is attacking them and the like the connected motorhome thing is falling off the cliff, then the movie would be like unbelievable.
Yeah, no, so definitely. I mean, it's Spielberg. There's always going to be good sequences, but yes, no, definitely. I mean, what's really special about Jurassic Park is that it is so much more than just a movie about dinosaurs. It sort of like reinvigorates your belief that movies can matter.
Yeah.
That a moment in a movie, that moment, like it's got to be like one of the top 10 shots in movie history. Like when he sees the dinosaurs for the first time and he says, "Welcome to Jurassic Park."
Yeah.
That's just the power of movies, like right there, in your face.
I would argue that not that it's the most faithful adaptation of a novel that's ever been made, but I would say the most successful, seen as how any filmmaker who's adapting anything from a novel into a movie has to make changes. It's a totally different, way of telling a story. It's so much more visual and so on and so forth. So it's appropriate to make changes when you're making an adaptation. But in my eyes, I can't think of an adaptation that has of a novel that was done better.
You mean Jurassic Park?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm sure I haven't read all these books, let alone like to be able to compare. But I mean, The Godfather was way
That's
more
true.
consequential than the.
Well, I've not read that, so I don't know.
Yeah, and actually, the funny thing is like this argument about adaptations, like, oh, the book is better, the book is better. I actually think it might almost be 50-50. It can as easily find movies that are better than the books. Like it's so common. I mean, I listen to the audiobook.
I can only think of like 4.
No, I mean, I listened to the audiobook for Children of Men, and someday we should do an episode about it. And there's more substance to the book. It has more to say, but the movie is just way better. Like there's no doubt.
Movie.
Like the movie is more consequential. And I don't know if I've mentioned this in prior episodes, if we discussed this, but to me, you should always look at culturally what matters more, the book or the movie. And there's a lot of movies that are more consequential culturally than the book was.
Yeah, but does that speak to the quality of the movie or to something about our society?
Well, I mean, and another point is that just that if nothing else, there's a lot of times where they say that mediocre books tend to make really good movies because you can
That makes
take
sense.
the best parts of it and remove all edit out all the things that are not as good.
Yeah.
So like There Will Be Blood was based on this novel Oil by Upton Sinclair. There's all these like adaptations that are not very faithful, but you take this core from this material and then you make a really good movie out of it from a book that nobody knows really.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the funny thing is, like, think about No Country for Old Men, and I mean, I really enjoy Cormac McCarthy as an author, and I've read most of his books. I'm still struggling to get through Blood Meridian, though. Honestly,
That's a tough one. So really,
that
I
is a
tried
that
to.
is a rough book. But I mean, No Country is a really faithful adaptation to the original novel. Um, and it is funny because the novel is kind of mediocre and the movie's fantastic. I mean, the movie is one of my all-time favorites, and the book was more of like, yeah, take it or leave it, it's fine. uh I mean, it's like the exact opposite reaction that I had to Never Let Me Go. It's easily one of my favorite novels, and then they made it into a really garbage movie.
But
uh,
that's
uh
more common. I totally agree that very, very good books are tough to get right. But mediocre books are
Ender's
often
Game 2.
Ender's Game. Yeah. But yeah, I had another example. I think it was uh was it a Denis movie? But in any case, I mean, we are veering off into the whole subject of adaptation, which we've touched in the past. But yeah, but for whatever reason, yes, like a movie sometimes
uh,
works and it works better than. I mean, Goodfellas, I think, was a book, and obviously the movie is way more consequential than the book ever was.
I've never read that one.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it was, but like a
And
memoir or something.
I'm also willing to bet that none of us have read Super Toys Last All Summer Long, which is what AI is based off of, right?
Yeah,
So